Hi, I'm Mark Rogers out at the range today to briefly, it will be a brief video hopefully, briefly show you how to properly operate and practice with a double action, single action, hammer fired pistol with, gotta make sure this focuses in, a safety and decocker on the pistol. Now, many people across the United States, in fact, the majority of people that are gun owners that own handguns own striker fired guns. But there are untold thousands of people that still carry hammer fired double action, single action pistols just like this one right here. There's some good reasons to do that. But if you're going to carry one like that, keep it for home defense gun or whatever you're going to use it for, it really pays to get out and practice with it and to learn to shoot it properly and to learn how to overcome a couple things that require a learning curve that's a little different than with a striker fired gun. First of all, I'm going to turn my camera around here and I'm going to show you from the side so you can see my hand and you can see me operating the safety lever and the decocker. I'm going to show you what the advantages of this gun are. I'm going to show you what the disadvantages are. I'm going to show you how to overcome the disadvantages and how to practice with a gun to become effective with it if you decide to keep it and carry it, or if you decide to use it for home defense gun or whatever you do with it. So let me change the camera angle and I'll show you how this works. Now, here on the side of the gun is where the issue is with this gun. I'm going to show you something first of all before I rack the slide or anything. With this gun, if you use the decocker on it, what you'll do is you'll rack the slide, and it is cleared, but doesn't make any difference. I'm pointing it down range here. Drop the slide on a round to put it in the chamber, and then this is kind of counterintuitive if you've never done this before. The hammer's back, the decocker is right here. I'm gonna push down on the decocker and watch what the hammer does. Now that's kind of freaky the first few times you do it, but what that's for is to drop the hammer, which drops it on a firing pin block that keeps it safely in position, and you can carry it like this. Here's what's interesting about this right here. If there's a round in the chamber, I can draw the gun and pull the trigger and the gun fires. But that first long trigger pull is just that. It's long and heavy. The first trigger pull with this gun decocked, you rack the slide, drop around the chamber, and you decock it, the first trigger pull is going to be very long and it's going to be very heavy, just like a double action revolver. Just like that. 11 or 12 pounds of weight on the trigger, and that first one is very, very heavy. But once that first round is fired, that slide will rack back and cock this gun again, and the hammer will then be back. And what you have then is a very short, crisp, about a 4-pound single action trigger pull. As long as you're continuing to fire and as long as there are rounds in it, it will continue to cycle, continue to drop the hammer back, and you'll continue to keep that in a very light, crisp trigger pull. Here's where the learning curve is. The learning curve is learning how to transition from that first trigger pull, long, heavy, to the second one right after that one, your follow-up shot, which is a very light one. Mentally, until you get out and do that, if you've never done it before, shooting that first one and shooting that second one is pretty disconcerting until you get used to it. And getting used to it is what this is about. So let me show you how this works and how we can overcome the learning curve and this transition between the first shot and the second shot with two very different trigger pulls. Before I get started on that, I will talk to you for just a minute about the reason for these guns and the reason for carrying a gun like this. That first trigger pull is just like I said, it's just like a revolver. It's long, heavy. You know, with revolvers, you can take a revolver, double action revolver, and you can take it with a holster, without one, with or without a pouch. You can drop it in a tackle box, put it in your pocket, put it in a console. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about it even though it's out of a holster. You don't have to worry about something touching the trigger. Now, that should be a major concern with anybody, and no safety feature on any gun should override your personal safety, keeping your finger off the trigger till you're ready to shoot something, pointing the gun in a safe direction at all times. Nothing should override that. But the reality is, with revolvers, we know we can keep a double action revolver in places and around places without the same concerns for the light trigger pull that a striker fired gun may have. this has that kind of trigger pull when the gun is decocked. So I would say if I've racked a slide, there's a round in the chamber, I've decocked that thing, I can put it in my holster, I can put it in my tackle box, I can put it wherever. It's ready to fire. But that first shot is going to be long and it's going to be heavy. On this gun, the decocker is also a safety. So if you drop it all the way down like this, when you decock it, the trigger is inert. Some guns come with a standalone decocker, which is a safety feature in and of itself, or decocker and safety like this one does, where if you drop it down, it's both decocked and it's on safe. For me, that's a few too many features as far as safety goes for me to carry it like that. If I carry this gun, whenever I carry this gun or when I keep it at home, I keep it ready to fire, safety off, decocked, it's safe in that condition, and it's ready to pick up and fire if I should have to, with that first long trigger pull and then a light 4-pound or so trigger pull after that. So that's the reason for carrying the gun, it's the reason for using the gun. That's the reasons for this type gun rather than a striker fired gun. Whatever that may mean to you, don't know, but there are untold numbers of people that still swear by these type guns right here. I keep this one for home defense, and sometimes I'll take it out in the woods or I'll put it in a tackle box. I use this gun. I don't carry it all the time, but there are reasons to use this kind of gun, and some people don't carry anything else. So it's worth coming out and learning how to practice with this double action and single action trigger pull on this gun and how to make the transition. Okay, I put 10 rounds in my magazine, then I chambered around, and then I decocked my gun. The way I use my gun, when I carry this, I don't carry it a lot, but when I carry it and when I keep it for ready for home defense, I keep it around in the chamber and I keep it decocked. I do not use the extra safety that goes with it that makes the trigger inert. The decocker itself is the safety. So it's ready to fire with a long, heavy action first trigger pull. Now, what we're going to do here is I'm going to show you how, exactly how, to practice for the transition between the first long, heavy trigger pull and the second short, crisp trigger pull. That mental, when you do this the first few times, it'll have a mental effect on you that will throw you a little bit because you feel that long boom, and then you're expecting that again, but you get a really short, like a 1911 trigger pull. So I'm going to show you how to overcome that right now, and that's just by simply getting out and practicing with this gun decocked and then shooting a second shot. After shooting a decock shot, shooting a second single action shot and doing that over and over again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire a series of 2 shots. The first shot will be decocked with the hammer down and with a long trigger pull. The second shot will be the follow-up shot with a really short, crisp trigger pull with the hammer back. Then I'll decock the gun after each 2 shots. So here goes the first 2. The gun, there's a round in the chamber, the gun is decocked, ready to fire, 2 shots, and then decock again. Watch my hands and just watch the gun. Long, heavy trigger pull, short trigger pull. And by the way, when you go out and do this, really take your time in making sure that you're following up and thinking between each shot. Now, I know in a self-defense situation you may be blasting away, but learning how to get between that first heavy and second light trigger pull is critical in practicing with these guns. 2 more shots. Hammer down and then hammer back. And you see, after each time I shoot 2 shots, I decock the gun, take the safety off. It's ready to fire again, just like it would be if I was carrying it. Series of 5, 2 shots at a time. Heavy action first trigger pull, light action second trigger pull, decock. That's the way you do it. I'm gonna do it with three sets of 3 shots this time. 1 heavy double action trigger pull and 2 light action trigger pulls, decocking. Let's see how that works out. This time I'm gonna be shooting 3 rounds. 1 heavy action, double action trigger pull, 2 single action trigger pulls, and decock. I'm gonna do that 3 times in a row. I have complicated it somewhat, which this will be something that's important for you to do too if you're going to carry a gun like this, is I'm drawing it from a holster. Whatever kind of holster you would carry it in, that's the kind you'd want to draw it from. I'm just doing it from a range holster, but just to illustrate what's going on here. But it's both getting used to the gun itself, the action of the gun from first to second shot, and then doing that from a holster, whatever kind you carry it from. So I know that this is 2021, we're in the midst of a gross ammo shortage, but with this type gun, there is no substitute for getting out and getting on the trigger between first and second shot. That's all there is to it. But you don't have to spend a gazillion dollars on it. You can go out and do it efficiently with a box or 2 of ammo. So here we go, 3 shots out of the holster this time, 3 shots. 1 with the hammer down, 2 with the hammer back, decock. By the way, one other thing that's important here is if you miss your first shot when you're practicing like this, don't just drop down and go, oh, if you miss your first shot, don't let it throw you. The idea is that first heavy action trigger pull is to move somebody back and do whatever you have to do if the unthinkable happens. But if you miss that first shot, the idea is you got 2 follow-up shots after that. Recover, get on target, and make them count. Decock and do it again. It's practice, so this is where if you're going to miss, do it, but don't let it throw you. Just recover. Okay. And yes, I did miss my first one on that one, but I recovered with the next 2. That's the way that you practice. It's pretty simple, really. But in terms of getting out and getting on that trigger and doing this, it's really important that you bring these guns out and practice between first and second shot. Hammer down, hammer back, decock, hammer down, hammer back, decock. Doing those shots over and over again, and then doing it from a holster. Lots of gun manufacturers make these guns. Let's go talk about them here for just a second, and then I'll end the video, and you can go out and shoot your double action, single action gun if you have one, or if you go get one. Let's go talk about these guns. So, double action, single action pistol with a decocker. For all the reasons that we talked about a while ago, and quite a few more, any of those reasons apply to you. One of these would be a worthy consideration to your arsenal, or even for your first carry gun. Just remember, if you go out to a range of one of these and you've never handled one before, go with somebody that's experienced with them so you can get a little insight and a little bit of help with them if you need it. Otherwise, it's important to just practice, just like I showed up in this video. It's simple, but it's just very, very important to get used to the difference between that long, heavy trigger pull and that very short single action trigger pull. And I'm pointing this downrange in a pistol bay here. So, but a lot of companies still make these guns, not the least of which is Sig Sauer and Beretta, which have hammer-fired pistols as their flagship guns for their companies. So you can get these. The important thing to do when you're looking at one at a store, or when you're looking at one that you're thinking about buying from somebody, ask them if you can pull the trigger on it a couple of times. That's going to be important. If it's in a store, if you need a snap cap or something, ask them. Tell them you need to pull the trigger. Pull the trigger on it in double action with the hammer down, and then pull the trigger on the single action trigger pull to make sure that's good for you. If that's the case, and any of these reasons that we've talked about, this would make a good gun for you. Then the ones that have a great reputation from the companies that have made these guns for a lot of years and have built their companies around them, this will provide a great self-defense weapon for you, for home defense, for personal self-defense, however you need to use it. Double action, single action pistol with a decocker, a worthy consideration for your self-defense arsenal. I'm Mark, and I will see you very soon again on another Christian gun owner video.